Did I do it? Did I figure out how to make you a mod? Oh, you are a mod. Look at that. Made you and Eric a mod. I had to Google it. What's up, Gurfs? Thanks for following. Bill Coleman. Say hello to your new mod. I had to figure out how to do it. Google's my friend. So, excuse me. How can you mod my thing to let me? Let me Google that for you really quick, Eric. There should be a little icon in the top of your Twitch app that says cast to TV. If it's not there, then your TV sucks. Actually, well, no, you cast other stuff to your TV from Twitch, so it should work. I did! I was quoted on Pinside today because I asked a very bold comment on their post. Pretty happy. I'm famous. I'm Pinside famous now. Maybe try closing the app and going off Wi-Fi, and then come back onto Wi-Fi, let it fully connect, and then open the Twitch app and try it that way. Might need to like reestablish your network connection or something weird. This is water, not vodka. Okay, so where are we at today? I need to do like a full screen camera scene so I can show off my sketches a little bit better. I don't have one right now. I suppose I could just make one on stream. The duplicate scene, and we'll call this okay. Full screen cam, and we need to delete screen capture source. Make my awesome frame bigger. Let's see. Transform center to screen horizontally. Okay. Oh, yeah. There's a giant Kyle face. What did I just drag? There we go. Look at that. Welcome to Hogwarts. Okay, so that is now my camera view, so I can show off sketches. Look at that, fancy sketches. So this sketch right there is something that I did over the weekend. It's my first custom mech that I made. It's kind of a crude drawing, but deal with it. That mech I will show you right now. sketchy. Okay. So this is kind of the current state of the homebrew. Let me hide the Hogwarts model. Okay. So that mech is for this little collection of gadgets over here that I call Hagrid's Hut Assembly. And this mech is a mode state based diverter / target assembly. So based on the mode that you're in, it can either be closed like this, or it can be turned, and this right here turns into a guide rail to feed the right orbit. So when it's in its closed state like this, there's a under the flipper Hagrid shot that kind of feeds down in behind here and into a subway entrance hole. And then I wonder if I can like rotate that whole thing. I have everything except for this. Let me move this into the assembly. There we go. I need to add a a rigid grouping to these. Hagrid hot target bracket, and don't need the motor bracket. That body. Does it not let me do it like that? Do I have to actually create a body for that, or a component for that body? Do that real quick. Oh, would help if I'm in design mode. Try selecting these again. There we go. Rigid group. And then I want to add means selected component. Hold on, I didn't have the motor bracket. Only want. Oh, it's because that body. Hold on. Alright, we're gonna do this what I was thinking I was gonna do. Create component from body. And here we'll call this playfield chunk. Okay, so now let's do this. Don't need the motor bracket or the switches, don't need the ball bearings. Okay, and then can I want to put a joint on that, and I want it to be rotational, revolute. I don't know if that worked the way I want it to. I'm learning these joint things. There we go. And do I need a component too? Oh, maybe I do. Yeah. Joints. Figuring out joints. So I made those rigid. Maybe I actually need to join those too. Ah, so annoying. I thought I made a rigid group. So in theory, I think I could create a joint on that. And that. Make it revolute. Click OK for now. And if I turn this... Nope, okay. So I gotta lock the other bodies to it somehow. Ugh. This is kind of the annoying part. I could probably focus on that more later. But, yeah, they really are. I'll show you the mech at least. I'll figure out the joints later. So, that whole thing is going to rotate with the targets in place, and then this becomes a guide to feed the orbit here. And if we go underneath, of course, it decided to make my DC motor a different material. Okay. So right now it's a DC motor, but it could be either a DC motor or a stepper. But right now it's just configured as a 20 RPM gearbox DC motor. And there's this whole crazy contraption under here that so you got a bracket here that screws to the playfield chunk, and then that's where those targets mount to. So all the targets mount to it, and then the shaft will, I gotta come up with a way to mount that plate to the shaft, but I'll figure that out once I build this. And then, so I've got kind of a little tab here, and there's another one across the way. So right now I'll just do, so you can see the two tabs. Those are my contacts for the micro switches, for the start and stop. And then you see my micro switches are kind of mounted funkily right now, but I put these slots in here so I can just kind of adjust them depending on whether or not it's contacting at the right point to stop movement. So yeah, it'll rotate, this tab here will rotate around, and then it's gonna hit this micro switch here. And then when it rotates back the other way, that other little tab there is gonna hit, and it's gonna hit this other micro switch right here. So that's kind of like the start and the stop of movement, or end of stroke switches, whatever you want to call them. And then I got little ball bearings in here to kind of support the platform and make sure that it's level. I need to maybe make these, instead of holes, make them slots so that I can adjust the height of those bearings to better support it, or make sure it's not like kind of cattywampus. But yeah, there's that. And then the cool thing about this is every one of these has a flat pattern. So like there's the diverter flat pattern, so I can export this and send it over to send cut send. And we've got this flat pattern, So that's the target mount slash the plate that screws to the chunk of playfield. And then I've got the motor bracket slash switch mount. So that's kind of going to be a mess to bend all those, but I'll do the best I can with it. I know Send Cut Send, they'll actually do a certain amount of bends for you. Like you can pay them to do some of the bends. I think you can only do like up to 10 or something like that. So yeah, there's all the flat patterns. That's the first custom mech that I've designed. I should hopefully make that a functioning diverter. So yeah, there's that thingy. And what I'm planning on working on today, thank you. We'll see. I mean, I think it should be rigid enough to support the motor and also give a stable base for those bearings so that it rotates, you know, flat, flush with the surface all the time. But we'll see. And you know, with that too, is once I connect the shaft to that plate, I should be able to use set screws and kind of hold it together. But the ball bearings should have a nice smooth action to it. So, kind of what I'm working on today, I think. So, it's going to be a pretty intricate subway system because there's an entrance here. There's an entrance back here. There's one here. There's one back in the corner there. There's one here. You can see right here there's one here, and there's another one here. So lots of entrance points, and then exit points are going to be this guy here, this one in the back corner here, and this one here. So those will all get it into the field of play. Some go to upper play fields. And then also these two here for the shooter lanes. So I'm not going with like a traditional ball trough. I'm kind of doing something unique in that there's two shooter lanes, and I kind of want like instantaneous, depending on the mode, if it goes into one shooter lane, that it can instantly shoot out the other, or vice versa. So there might be a little bit of that. There's also going to be like loading up, like the left lane is going to be your wand lane for casting spells. So there's going to be a way to load that up, maybe with a ramp or wireform. So I need like ball management, because I want something to always be staged in a shooter lane, just ready to go. And I'm gonna put like some one-way gates and stuff down here to divert balls down into this thing here. Which that's gonna be a whole nother custom diverter, because I need it to be able to sort balls either over to this VUC or over to the left VUC, or to stage them in the subway, which that'll happen underneath the playfield. So underneath the playfield, my plan is to do like a circuit. I don't think I have those drawings, at least on these pads. But it's going to be like a circuit that'll feed each of these vucks. And with that, like if I'm feeding a ball to this vuck here, and if I had one staged there already waiting to pop up, so like that vuck is actually part of what I call like the flu network. So it's this shot here on the left, and it's this shot back here. Those are like your flu network fireplaces. So there's one kind of underneath Hogwarts, and there's one over here that'd be like your Ministry of Magic. So like if I shoot here, I need one ready to go and pop out here, or vice versa. But if I have one staged in those vucks at any given point in time, ready to fire, then I need to be able to do something with it. If, let's say you shoot in here, well, now there's two balls stacked in there. So one of them's got to go either back into the subway or up and out. So for that design, I went through a lot of different ideas and iterations here, but let me switch it over to the camera. So I'm essentially going to take one of these pre-made vucks, and then I'm gonna build a bracket that goes on the backside here to sister a coil right next to it. And I'm gonna try to do some engineering and see this guy, this guy here. The idea is to have kind of like a diverter that pops into that vuck, and then I'm gonna momentarily pulse the vuck coil to launch the ball up into that diverter, and then it's gonna push it out into the subway. Because there's a kind of like a back entrance to this vuck. It's an open back. So ideally, the ball would like kind of pulse up, and if that diverter is in the way, it's gonna push that ball back out into the subway, and should have enough momentum on it to carry around a curve or something like that. So that's kind of what I gotta design now. So that's gonna be the basis for 1, 2, 3 of the vucks will have that kind of design. So that brings me over to this. Thank you. That was like this last weekend. I spent time designing the diverters and stuff for that. So this is that same vuck bracket. And I'm not swearing, I'm just VUK, vertical up kicker. So this is that bracket, and then I've so far created a secondary bracket on the back. And I need to somehow create a physical way to divert that. So right now I've kind of got, so there's you can kind of see a pinball in there right now, and I'm kind of shaping how I want that exit diverter to look. Oh, yep, thank you. Sorry. Okay, so this is the bracket. That guy there. And I threw a pinball in it, and I kind of raised the pinball up enough so it would clear this bottom bracket enough, plus the width of subway plastic. So I just assumed kind of double bracket width here, because there's going to be the subway that pours into it, and then it steps down onto that bracket. where it holds the ball. So I'm accounting for that extra thickness. And then what I'm trying to do is design that diverter there. So I kind of came up with just a little bit of a curved profile. So when I pulsate that lower coil, it kicks it up enough to where it'll roll off of this and back into the subway. So now I got to figure out the leverage action of how that bracket needs to function. So if I've got a coil on the back side here, it's either going to be one that kicks up, just like the coil is in there already for the buck, or it's going to be one that pulls down, like, you know, this guy here. So hard to do this reversed. There we go. That guy. So I haven't quite figured out how I want that to work, if it's going to pull down or kick up. The difference being is what's the normal state for this diverter? Is it going to be in the way, or is it going to be pulled out of the way? And then when the coil's triggered, is it going to move in, or is it going to pull it out? Right now I'm leaning towards it's going to be in, and then the diverter's going to pull it out. The reason for that is because if there's a ball that gets shot into that vuck, it needs to kind of sit up and out of the way while the other one gets transferred to the subway. So I'm thinking it's going to be kind of in the way normally, and then we'll pull it back and out. And kind of what I'm thinking is I'm just going to go back to edit the sketch. I'm kind of thinking if I do a slot, a 3-point arc slot, and let's call this slot like a pin slot. So if you can imagine, a pin is riding in this slot. Something kind of along those lines, then that acts as a guide for the action of that bracket, or that diverter getting pushed in there. So yeah, that's what I need to figure out, is how that's gonna work mechanically. Let's just kind of sketch some ideas, like a kind of like a cam. Let's just say that's my diverter piece that's gonna rock in and out of there. And then if I have, let's call this, I don't know. So like there's my linkage with the plunger. And then this is a pin that kind of goes through. It's so hard to figure this out. So the first thing I need to do is if I am using a coil that pulls down, what's the travel distance on that plunger? And I think I maybe did this earlier. Nope, I only did that for the one that goes up. So right now about 33 millimeters, fully extended. Darn spring gets in the way. Get out of the way. At about 12, so 33 minus 12. So let's say the pulling down action gives me 21 millimeters of travel. Sorry, I'm sketching this in my pad here. So there's 21 millimeters of travel. So that gives me a little bit of space to work with there on where that linkage ends up. And this is going to be another thing where it's going to be useful to understand how to do joints in this software. So let's see, this is currently smaller. Alright, so there's that box there is how far my plunger can travel. And then on top of that is usually a little doohickey. Oh, and I forgot there's, I think it's maybe the control button or control key that lets me draw stuff without it automatically putting constraints on. That, it's still got a constraint. Okay. So there's kind of my little linkage, which I'm kind of basing off of this slingshot linkage here. Wonder if there's, nope, no CAD drawings associated with this, but so roughly right. It's kind of sitting on top of the end of that plunger, so I'm just gonna roughly sketch that in there like that. That's got, we'll see, what's a quarter inch look like? A little too big. Just go with 1/8 for now. So there's kind of my slingshot plunger and linkage. And I think it's 2-inch length. Yep, the plunger itself is 2 inches. 2 inches down. So there's the total plunger length. Reference lines here are just for the travel distance. Okay, so there's my plunger and linkage. Hey, it's Kielbasa. I forgot I had emotes made for this. We got that, we got that. All kinds of goodies. Yeah, so I got Kielbasa, I got Suds, I got a Megazord and Megazord activated. I got Charles and a Shill icon. Not Shell, Shill. Okay. So, let's see. I'm just kind of roughly sketching this in here for now. Just a little line there. Okay. So that's kind of what I imagine that linkage would look like there. And then this guy here might kind of extend straight down, because I think there's going to have to be two guide dowels in it. You'd have one there and one there. I don't remember what size I just made the other one. I'm spitballing. And we'll do that. Okay. So let's pretend that that guy and that guy are two dowels mounted to my diverter. And then the plunger is also mounted to the diverter. So when that plunger sucks in 21 millimeters, I think is what I said, then both of these dowels are going to travel down this arc and kind of be in this position here. So like when it's fully pulled down and out of the way, the two dowels will be like that. And then when it's up and in the way, two dowels will be like that. Roughly speaking, that's kind of my thought process on this. So let's see. What size do I need that slot to be? It's gonna be so hard to figure out like what that looks like. Yeah, so I don't want a single pivot point, just for the sole reason that this, like the tip of this here, if I had a single pivot point, so let's say, can I like select this and rotate it? Let's say if the pivot point was here, the swing on that is so high that it's just gonna push any ball sitting out that's up there. And it's going to be a big chunk that has to be cut out of the back of that bracket to let that happen. So my thought process is, if I have two, and there's a path that they can travel, then I might be able to kind of get this whole thing sweep in. Try this, rotate, kind of more like that, which is a lot cleaner on pulling that back out of the way. I don't know yet. I'm kind of thinking whatever I just had right there is pretty close. What if you had a piece attached to the arc below the track that I could pivot on? So like you're saying, if this whole thing right here pivoted kind of right around here-ish. Still get that upswing. I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about. And my thought process is, if I have like 2 points that have to travel along a certain path, I can control how that retracts. The other thing, like that doesn't need to be... Oops. I think kind of what I'm gonna try to do is mock something up and just play with the joints in here. See how I can get that to work. There's that. We make these. Inch. I'm just gonna make those 1/8 inch steel dowels for now. This arc is kind of the part that I need to figure out how to design that. I guess I kind of think what I'm gonna do is just roughly try to start figuring that out. So let's say I had those 2 dowels move along that bracket. So this is, let's say this is a flat piece of steel, and then it'll have 2 dowels through it, and then it connects to another identical flat piece of steel. That's kind of the diverter thing that's going to kind of fork in there. I had thought about that, but because of how that ball sits down in the VUC, it might be kind of difficult to get an upward angle, enough of an upward angle on it. Because like when that ball is fully down inside of this little cradle here, kind of about like there-ish. So like trying to get a plunger that hits it from the side is going to be a little bit tough, and there's not really enough room to get one in at like an upward angle. That was one of my initial thoughts. Yeah, Gorn, come to dinner. Okay. So if those rotate around this axis point here, of course with my luck, got linkages. Yeah. The hard part about that is you can't like pause a plunger halfway through its moment of travel. It's the magnet's either on or off, right? So my thought is if I can get a plunger, or that VUC plunger, to knock the ball up into a guide, that would carry the momentum and spit it into the subway. Okay. like that almost works there. Like that's halfway kind of the action that I want out of it. But that access needs to be set back like another... I don't know. I had kind of that be my axis. And try this again. Like that's kind of a little bit better there. So if that moved it down, of course that's all skewed now. I freaking hate. Hate these constraints. So annoying. Gonna make this easier on myself and get rid of all those arcs, so it's not trying to do like funky tangent stuff. Yeah. This constraint. That. Need that either. Itself to itself. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, give me 1 second to rotate this. That's a little better. Look at that. So that's kind of what I want the action of that diverter to look like. So normally it'd be like this, and then when a ball lands on top and it needs to kick one into the subway, it would do so, and then to let that other ball drop down, it pulls back like that. Boom, now we have another ball staged. Okay, so that's about, I think, where I want the radius to be on that arc. Okay, so would you rather have a demonstration in visual pinball, or yeah, we'll just do visual pinball. I'll show you the actual sketch eventually here. And can I turn down this music in my ear? I can think. Okay, so here's the mess in Visual Pinball. And I'm just going to pause the music. So, there's a whole lot going on here. But, essentially, what I'm trying to do is a wide body game with 2 shooter lanes. Many different skill shots, all that stuff. So, immediately from the start here, on the right side of the playfield is, it's like platform 9 3/4. So when you plunge the ball, it's going to go through like a last second wall that drops. Not a drop target, but just a last second wall, so your ball just kind of goes through the wall. And then into play. And from that, there's going to be many different skill shots. There'd be, and it's harder to tell you stuff when I can't point to it. Let's go back to the editor. And then I will hide all the crud, which is that and that. Those. We can keep those. We'll keep those. Okay. So, shot layout. Going from left to right in reading order. So, down here, you've got the left shooter lane, which is your wand lane for casting spells. When you're ready to like cast a spell or whatever, there'll be a shot that gets you into that wand lane. There will also be ones where your ball goes into the subway and then it just immediately puts a ball into the wand lane, and then you can skill shot out of it to cast spells. And then based on how much you plunge, if you go full plunge, it'll go all the way up to this inner orbit through the spinner here. If you do a little bit less than that, you can get it to kind of rattle around and come down to the flipper, the upper right flipper. You can actually skill shot underneath this upper right flipper into Hagrid's hut. And then there's the 4 stand-up targets here that you can hit off of that shot. And then I'll probably even put one in where if you can partially plunge it and get it to loop back down through this other right feed to your right flipper, that'll be a thing. But, so that's your wand lane. In addition to that, what you can't currently see in here, but I can actually show you the early stages of that in here, is going to be a rail system, so a linear bearing with a magnet mounted to it, so that magnet will travel along that axis, and I can do many different things with it. The thought being that I can take a ball and like grab it here and pause it in the middle of your casting of the spell. I can whip it. I should be able to like throw it at an angle. I can also like grab your ball and like slowly move it and then like whip it up into this area here or up other shots. There's a whole lot of different possibilities with a magnet on a linear rail, and I want to try to incorporate that as best as possible. But right now, early stages, it looks like it's going to fit, so there's that. So yeah, on the left side of the playfield coming out of that shooter lane, there's a 2-way diverter here. So when you're launching out of the shooter lane, it's going to pull this diverter down, and then this will be kind of your guide rail for those skill shots. And it allows it to pass under the back here. But normally it's going to be like you see it. So whenever a ball comes out of this Ministry Vuck here, it'll shoot down and feed across to your left flipper. So I'm trying to make the wider lanes faster, because on like a lot of wide bodies, I feel like it can be a slow game. So one thing that I kind of stole from Pirates is what they did with that shot, how it comes down and feeds to the flipper. But I'm doing it on both sides in a way, so that you can get really fast rolling shots off the flipper to go to the outermost shots. So it'll make those outer orbits feel a little bit more satisfying. But yeah, I designed this diverter the other day. So yeah, there's your ministry shot. And then you've got the spinner shot here, which I'll go back to Visual Pinball now. So here's your spinner shot. That shot normally comes around to a ramp that kind of goes around the backside and then feeds up. So back in this right corner is the sorting hat diverter. So it's kind of based off of a railway turntable, where you have this guide on a rotating platform that can either have your ball, so like if you shoot this back ramp here, the guide would be in this state. So it can feed all the way around, all the way back down to this fast lane to your right flipper. Also with that, if you're shooting any of these ramps and the diverters in this position, that serves as kind of like a little mini ramp loop. So you come up here and then it'll either come down, or no, it'll more than likely come down this wire form here. Which one is the mini loop one? Can't select it because there's too many things in front of it. But there's one up there, so when you shoot this, it'll come right back down and spit back down at you. So it can make that some fast ramp play. So yeah, there's many ways into the sorting hat diverter. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 ways out, essentially. In addition, there's going to be a magnet up there that flings it back into the subway. And additionally, I can launch a ball up out of the subway into sorting hat diverter. So like this section of ramp right here would feed the Hogwarts upper playfield. So like if I wanted to feed a ball to that playfield, I could. Yeah, so that's the sorting hat. So yeah, if you shoot the left orbit in one state, it'll do that. And in another state, it's gonna come up. So here's like the normal state. This is another diverter. This is the house black diverter. So it'll be kind of like an apartment building complex thing like in the movie, where it kind of pulls apart and reveals another apartment building, but it changes that shot. So this would then slide over into this position. And then when you shoot that shot, it'll actually come around the outer right orbit. So like you're starting to kind of see a common theme, is what I'm trying to do is every shot has multiple possible outcomes. So if you shoot the left orbit, it's not always going to be the same result. If you shoot the inner orbit, it's not always going to be the same result. Idea for platform 9 3/4. What if the plunge was actually a Newton ball situation? There is a wall in the shooter lane and a captive ball closest to the player that is plunged, but a ball was ejected on the other side of the wall, so that when you plunge the ball, it looks like a transfer through the wall, but it's really a Newton ball. So then the ball that's currently, that you just plunged, that would have to go back somewhere, right? So that would trickle back down into the outlane, or kind of outlane. So if it's plunged right here, if it plunges up and hits another Newton ball, let's say on the other side of this wall or right in here, then that would transfer momentum and then drain back down into here, which then I could stage. That would work. That's a cool idea. But how would I get a Newton ball into play into this spot every time? It's kind of the hard part with that, because I would have to have a ball always on the other side of this wall ready to be Newtoned. Always ready to be Fig Newtoned. So that part I would have to figure out. But good idea. Let me think on that. Another ball eject. Why not? Let's just throw ball ejects and vucks everywhere. Okay. I'll put that one in the notebook. So then, if you, let's say this diverter, the house black diverter is over here. Let me select. Alright. Let's say it's over in that position. Then the ball would come up here and feed your outer orbit. So that's that shot. Now one shot over is what I call the inner left orbit. So this actually shoots it up into, there's like an inner orbit that comes around to this flipper. So the ball would come up around here and back down around here to this flipper. Normally that's what's going to happen, but I also would have a magnet back here so that I can grab a ball from that, drop it into this subway entrance here, which then feeds the Quidditch playfield. So there's just kind of a one-way subway right here that links these two. So magnet grabs a ball, drops it down into this entrance, then feeds this Vuck back here to go to Quidditch. So yeah, and that gives me the option, like if a Quidditch mode is ready or whatever, you can either shoot this left inner orbit or you can shoot in front of the right flipper. And no matter what, as long as it's in that orbit, this magnet can grab it and drop it into the Quidditch playfield. To the right of that, we have the Horcrux area. So this little guy right here is a it's a captive ball / multi-ball. So these two little guys here are posts that would raise up and hold back a ball that you shoot up in there. And then in there's 5 targets in the back. Sadly, not 7, because everything in Harry Potter is in 7s. But 5 targets in the back. Let's say you complete those, then oh, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. So you shoot a captive ball up into here, posts raise, and then it's trapped in there, and it gives you another ball into play. And then with that other ball, you can hit that captive ball at different angles to try to get it to hit and complete targets. And let's say you get enough hits on those targets, then eventually that's like you destroying the Horcrux, and this magnet here would like pulsate and throw it around a bunch to like create a moment as you're destroying the Horcrux, and then they would release into maybe a multi-ball or who knows. So yeah, that's the Horcrux area. And then, so again, continuing left to right. So these would all be shots from your lower right flipper. From there, also you have one that kind of is in line with the targets here, and it goes back to the fireplace flue. And that one is a subway entrance / Vuck, so if you shoot there, it would instantaneously pop out here. And then to the right of that is a ramp that goes up to the sorting hat diverter that has multiple outcomes. So that's kind of about all of the shots from the right flipper. And then as we move further right, they start coming off the left flipper. So now you have this area, which is kind of like the dungeons and basement of Hogwarts. And this is kind of like a chamber for pop bumpers and a sling. So you would shoot up into here. There's a drop target in the back that keeps this lane closed unless I want it to be open. So you shoot up into here, it bounces around, it can pour out the right side over here. Or there's a bank of drop targets in front of here that kind of holds the ball in there. And then after a certain point in time, those open up, or depending on what I want to do with it to keep it in there or let it out or whatever, I can drop those and the ball pours out of there. And to keep anything from like draining straight out of there down into the center, so to keep anything from doing this and coming straight down the middle, I would have an array of magnets here that would be like black lake. So the black lake would sit, there'd be like acrylic or whatever, and maybe some like purple or dark blue lights to kind of create like a watery effect. So when those magnets are active, it creates like a watery effect. And what that'll do is anything dropping out of the pop area can kind of get jumped around and redirected up here to keep it from just pouring down the middle. Through the back of that pop bumper area is the room of requirements shot. So it's a through the pops shot. I'll probably have some code to make it kind of tough to get to. I'm thinking that would be like your extra ball shot. So that room of requirements shot actually passes through the inner loop and back into the outer loop so that I can feed it to the subway. Or if I don't want to feed it to the subway, I can just let it pour out the orbit. I don't care. So then next to the right of that, so you've obviously got the drop targets here. There's a stand-up target behind one of them just to kind of protect. There's a metal ball guide right here just to kind of protect the edge of that from banging up a ball. And I'll figure out a usage for that target. So this shot is a turnaround that feeds your flipper. So from the lower left flipper, you can feed the upper right flipper by hitting that turnaround. Or you can also feed this upper right flipper by shooting, if you recall, this inner orbit on the left side. So both lower flippers can get you to the upper right flipper when you need to. So I'll flip around there. Then there's this ramp here that goes up to the soaring hat diverter. Again, multiple paths, multiple outcomes. And then to the right of that is the right inner orbit shot. So that, when you go through there, and this is kind of one of my favorite shots, it sweeps around that inner orbit, and then it comes off of this rail here, and it shoots it right down the gullet into this right feeder lane here. So if you nail that shot, and if I dial it in just right, that thing whips right back down to your right flipper. So it's a really fun shot. Then you've got the shot under the flipper here. So left flipper under the flipper, drains it into Hagrid's hut, which I showed here. So that's your under the flipper shot, and it comes down into a subway entrance there. And then there's the Hagrid hut, which I showed those targets that will rotate out of the way. So it can be like this, or it can be opened up and allow you to shoot this right outer orbit. And when you shoot that right outer orbit, there's a magnet in the back that can drop it into the subway, or it can come all the way around back out to your left outer orbit. One other thing with the inner right orbit, so, and again, common theme, every shot, multiple outcomes. So if you shoot this inner right orbit, it can either whip around down to the right flipper, Or this magnet can grab it and drop it into the Quidditch pitch subway entrance. Or there's a diverter in the back here where it'll actually feed it out to the outer orbit. So one shot can either come out the left orbit, or it can whip down to your right thing, or the subway can eat it. And yeah, so that's the right shots. And then down here, kind of where this post is, there would be the Whomping Willow, and that's going to be a spinning disc. Such an easy design. That's going to be a controllable spinning disc, so it'll have like a post on it, maybe a sculpt to make it look like the willow's actually coming up out of the playfield. Depends on how crazy I get. But right now it'll just be a post on a disc, kind of like the record on GNR. And when you hit it, you can get spins on it, but that also spinning around can like mess with your ball. And then the other cool thing is it's going to be a controlled spinner, which that's a mech I have to design, where I can position the post wherever I want. So if I want that post to block a shot to the orbit, I can do that. Or if I want that to mess with anything feeding the right side here during like a Whomping Willow mode, it can be sitting there kind of spinning on its own. So anything that comes down to your right outlanes and inlanes here can kind of get beat around and messed with. And then, yeah, so you've got all your inlanes and your outlanes. The other thing that I wanted to do, and it's not really kind of drawn in here, but for like a Dobie save, so like Dobie kind of comes and helps you when you're in single ball play. So if your ball's coming down this out lane, I would have optosensors and then magnets staged in this kind of trough ball collect area, which you can kind of see a little bit better in this. So a ball comes down the out lane, right here. Nope, right here. So a ball comes down right here, and then an optosensor picks it up. There's a magnet right here, so I'd quickly pulse that magnet to whip it down this way, and then it'll ride this guide rail. It'll skip over to the other side, and then the same thing, another magnet that I can pulsate and trigger, and it'll whip it back up and out the other out lane back into play. I think it's it'll be really awesome if I can get it to work, but I think it's going to be tough. But yeah, so when Dobie save is lit, thank you for the follow, much appreciated. Yep, I know there's a lot of people who would love to have a nice Harry Potter pin. Kind of why I'm doing it, because who knows if one will ever get made, so I'll just make my own. So yeah, yeah, Perry Hotter. So yeah, Dobie save when lit would whip the ball down following this guide rail. This other magnet would whip it into this guide rail, and then back up the out lane and into play. So if I can get that to work, that will be awesome. I think it's possible. So yeah, that is that. That's kind of a layout overview. So I'll show you the visual pinball playable sample of it, just so you can see what I mean by some of the shots. Oh, I forgot to talk about shots from the upper right flipper. So from that, there's a sorting hat shot. So from the upper right flipper, there's a shot to kind of a sideways ramp that you saw me hit there initially. To the left of that, there's 3 targets that are on, like, remember the Horcrux area that's on the right side of the Horcrux area. So there's those. And then there's an inner orbit shot to kind of feed your upper right flipper over and over again. Then there's a bank of targets. There's Quidditch pitch. And like the upper playfields are just kind of loosely mocked up. The final shots are gonna be interesting. Yeah, there's that shot that I love. If I can get that tuned in to make that happen every time you shoot in front of that right flipper, man, that'd be awesome. Oops. For some reason, one of my shots got clunky in here when I added an upper playfield, so it doesn't work exactly right. Oh yeah, and then I want like I want it to be pretty like heavy-handed as far as how much muscle you got to put into it. So both of my outlanes have currently just built into the concept ideas for like kind of you can nudge your ball back into play. So the one on the right side is kind of stolen from Pirates. The one on the left outlane is something I kind of came up with. Who knows if it'll work, but there's two gates there that you can see. Kind of looks like poop. But like right there, you just saw it bounce back up into play. So, I want it to be a lot of skill involved saving. So not just like nudging when it's above your outlanes, but also nudging when it's gone down an outlane. Makes you push the risk reward with your tilts. So are you going to make the real life version and also you'll be posting the videos of it on YouTube? Yes. So this, I started out by kind of coming up with a layout in Visual Pinball. Something that I liked, and I spent a lot of time tuning it to get it to feel good. Feel flowy, at least from a Visual Pinball example. And I've been spending the last couple months transferring it over to a CAD file. Just to transfer the physical layout. And then right now I'm kind of in the design phase for some of the custom mechs and stuff because I want it all to fit before I like get too far down the physical side of things. I want to know like what space I need underneath for all the brackets and stuff. So that's kind of the point that I'm at with it right now. And once I get all the custom mechs kind of designed and figured out, then I'm going to do my first whitewood and CNC it and throw some coils on it and see how it flips. Everything should, in theory, feed pretty close to the Visual Pinball table, but who knows? Darn grandstand. Interrupting my flow. But I think, even though the Quidditch pitch looks a little funky with posts and targets in it and stuff, you can't, I don't think, have just a big wide open oval. As much as fun it would be to just sit there and shoot loops in a big Quidditch pitch oval, you gotta have something to hit. So, like the two targets in the back would represent like the scoring rings with like the space in between them being the bigger scoring ring. And then a spinner on the outside for like flight practice or something. Since I'm just building this for myself, I'm just gonna kind of yank a lot of the score from the films because that music's already so good. I might end up doing some custom tracks if I need it. Sound effects will all be mostly custom. Like all the scoring sounds and the voice callouts and stuff like that will all have to be custom. But as far as like the background music that plays as you're playing, that will mostly be stolen from the movies. Yeah, let me just throw some Denisi techno in here. Let's let's make that fit into a Harry Potter pin. So yeah, you kind of seeing as I shoot, like some of the ramps, the different positions that sorting hat diverter is in. Oops. So like right now it's open, so if I shoot, I believe that right ramp, it should feed down the back ramp. The left flipper. There's a feed to the Hogwarts playfield, which none of that's really scaled. I just kind of threw something up there. There we go. There's a feed on the right side. Yeah, based on the position of that diverter up in the sorting hat, it's different outcomes. Like that'll probably need to be adjusted and fine-tuned. I don't know what wish.com is. Is that like a where you can hire out voice acting or something? I'm probably going to be using Fiverr for a lot of stuff like the artwork. I'll just find someone to do that for me on Fiverr. I guess like the part that I'm kind of in the dark on, like I gotta learn Python to do the coding in MPF, but like coding, I can learn most of that stuff. The hard part for me is going to be figuring out how to do like the user interface, like doing the graphical stuff to make it look cool. Because the other thing that I didn't talk about, instead of like a backboard, like what's back there now, I actually want a monitor back there, so that, you know, and it'll be like a full-size monitor that takes up the full width of the back there, and then I can render scenes behind Hogwarts Castle, because Hogwarts is going to be a 3D printed kind of sculpt that sits over that center playfield thing up there. So I want to be able to like render scenes depending on like the mood of the game. So if you're in the first year, it's going to be like a little bit more lighthearted and blue skies or something like that behind Hogwarts, but as you get further into the years in school, it's going to turn to be darker. And like the general progression of the GI in the game too will be like, the further you progress in the game, like the darker the GI and saturation and all that stuff is just going to become with all the lighting, because it gets more serious. Yeah, please go buy many things from wish.com. Nope. But yeah, I'm trying to make moments. Like I don't want it to be just a pinball machine that flips and flows nice. I want the code to be structured in a way so that you progress through the story. You fight battles, you do all like the big moments at the ends of every book. And then when you finish a year, then it's kind of like, you know, victory laps, or maybe it just drains your ball and you can watch a clip from the movie that's like kind of lighthearted and happy, and then it resets for your next year. I don't know what you guys are doing on Wish.com. You're telling me you can pay someone to build you a roller coaster for $500. It's not going to be the safest roller coaster. It's probably going to be made out of frickin' popsicle sticks. But they will build you a roller coaster. That does not sound safe at all. Ooh. There's that little behind the ramp feed to the right flipper. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. Any questions on the layout or plans and theme and all that stuff, ask away. I'm gonna go back to trying to make this mech. I do. I don't trust that website though. Guess that's the point. Okay. So I found out rotating around that axis worked pretty well. Sure. And okay, edit sketch. Just kind of draw a circle up here. Something like that. Then I'm gonna kind of need an arc for that. Let's see. So my bracket top is there. Out of the top of that, I'm probably gonna need that bracket to be lower. Gonna kind of move this stuff out of the way for now. Of course, there's constraints on everything, so I can't move crap. Is there a way to just like move stuff without constraints? I feel like there's gotta be. Like a control. Alright. See you later, Eric. Okay. There. Your crap. There's a way to sketch without constraints. I know that. I'm pretty sure it's like holding Control or Alt as you draw stuff. This portion. Hey. Alright. There's that. Save that position there. Then I think what I need to do is start kind of coming up with the arc that I need to this cam action. Gorn, let me know if your friend had any other questions, or they can feel free to speak up in chat as well. This arc. And definitely don't need that there. I think that's about what I want. Let's do the slot, the 3-point arc slot. And let's see, if I have, I don't know, 1/8-inch dowels, I probably need like an extra 1/8 of an inch, so a 1/16 on each side for movement, or 1/8-inch dowels are just tiny. We're gonna do 1/4-inch dowels. Yeah. Make this 5/16. That. And this guy here. Okay. So can I get like a length of this? Nope, it just tells me the radius. Okay. Well, is smart glass like the stuff that fogs on demand? If so, that'd be awesome. Oh, that is sweet. That's so cool. I'm jealous. Okay. That, let me do another circle in the middle there. So in theory, that should be the path of travel. That is cool. I've always thought about, I wonder if you could use smart glass over a playfield and, like, I don't know, use some sort of code to make the playfield go dark. That'd be neat. that. There's kind of like the diverter, roughly speaking. And need to constrain these to coincident that line. Oh, so it's a film. Huh. And is the film pretty, like, crystal clear when it's off? Hmm. Interesting. And, like, I imagine the controller for it's just, like, two wires that connect to two tabs or something. So when you apply the electrical charge to it, it just goes woof. Is it, like, semi-transparent when it's on? Or is it, like, 100% you can't see through it? Or can you control how transparent it is? That'd be cool. Hmm. Hmm. I might have to have you, like, set me up with some links stuff. That'd be cool to incorporate. Cause why not just like throw everything at my first homebrew? Why not? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Like, unless like there's a distinct like on-off point with however that technology works, but I would think if you adjust how much power is going through it, should be able to like control the haziness. Maybe. Okay. We're close. Are close. I need that arc to continue down a little bit farther. And I wonder if that's going to be enough pull. So if I can only move that down 21 inches. Okay. 21 millimeters. That probably gets me to like there. So maybe it needs to be a little bit tighter radius. Or I'm sure I can have a longer stroke plunge. Because this just stops at 21 because the bracket hits somewhere. Where's that hitting? Wonder. Let me grab a slingshot real quick. So let's see. How far? About the same distance. Okay. Okay, so need it to travel only 21 millimeters. So if I pull this straight down here, 21 millimeters. Me to there. So let's rotate in. That gets me down to right about there. So it's not quite out of the way enough. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Okay. Yeah, it might be something where it's just like on and off. There's no like dimmable state to it. Alright, Goran, look how close we are. So that is 21 millimeters pulled in, and it's almost out of the way. So close. If I could get it to go down to like there, that would be perfect. Okay. So it is truly just an on-off. Interesting. Yeah, that's so close right there. Wonder if I like move those in a little bit more. I don't know. Kind of starting to hit a wall tonight. But I've made, I think, pretty good progress in terms of what I need to do. Try one more thing. There. There. Same arc. But move them in a little bit. Maybe slightly less distance it has to travel. Oops. I want to move that. And I move just that. That's why. Now I'm moving the wrong one. There. And that goes there. That would be impressive if I can do that. We'll find out. All these constraints, because they mess with me every time. Right. So now 21 from there. Down to there. And let's see if I can rotate this again. Gets me closer. So I think I'm kind of starting to get the right idea. I just need to push that arc in a little bit farther. And then those two pins would travel along the slot. Going like there's normal, and then trigger the coil and it pulls it down right to there. Close. Very close. Never give up. Never surrender. So let's offset that in 1/16 of an inch. Here. That. You know what? I'm gonna draw a new circle. And the intersection. And 21 millimeters down from there. Now, grab all this again. Rotate it. .21mm point. Ooh. Getting so close. I don't know. What's up? First of all, welcome. I know I've had a few people say that I shouldn't be using Harry Potter because there might be some people out there, license-wise, wouldn't be happy, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be selling it, so there's that. And I think that's allowed under Creative Commons, but who knows. I think the diverter is figured out. I think this right here will be good enough. It's a homebrew, baby. Frickin' narcs. Speaking of, there's a YouTube channel called Cart Narcs. Definitely worth a watch. Definitely worth a watch. It's everything that you hate about people that leave shopping carts in the middle of a parking lot and then the wind blows them into your vehicle. Except there's a person running around like giving people shit for leaving their shopping carts in the middle of a parking lot. And like they get so angry. Like, I'm gonna fight you angry. Alright. So that is my slot. So let's draw this slot appropriately. Yeah, there's some really good ones out there. Alright, let's do a arced slot. Boom, bing bang boom. Okay, there's my slot. That's the slot that should, in theory, work. And that we'll just kind of do something like that. And kind of do something like that. I might actually have this kind of arc up a little bit. Just because I want that ball that's resting on top to be a little bit more inclined. Pull off as this pulls away. Something maybe like that. And get rid of these stupid constraints. Go away. I don't know why there's showing no constraint there. Whatever. And let's just do a little bit of a fillet. That. Half inch. Nice numbers. And what was that initially? I'll just make it 1/8. There's my funky little mess of a diverter plate thing. and that'll have plunger linkage to it. And then it'll have a rod that goes through it. And these two travel inside of the slot here. So this diverter gets pulled out of the way. And somehow I know that it's gonna just get all funky when I try to rotate this. Yep, look at that. Ugh, gross. I need that constraint to go away. Whatever. I think that'll work though. I think that'll work. So I need to create that linkage. That guy there. Should be able to measure one. I feel like it. I think the basic geometry is what I wanted to get done today for how that's going to work. I think I have that figured out. So, yeah. I think with that, I'm probably going to call it quits. I don't know who is streaming. See if there's anyone to raid. At least nobody on my follow list. Which, I kind of unfollowed a lot of people, so, you know. Getting way too many notifications. Alright, if you're here, if you're still here, thanks for popping in. Hopefully I learned you something today. Yeah. Look forward to getting this baby built. Well, I'll finish designing this mech, and that'll be another big one off the checklist. Yeah, I could throw you over to some Lost. So I'll save that. Ryan, I'll show you. Where is it? Over here. Custom mech. My first custom mech. Baby's first mech. So it rotates targets and a diverter thing up top here. So targets are out. And then when it rotates, this rail here lines up with that guide there and opens up the outer orbit. I'm just calling you Ryan because Goran called you Ryan. Seems to be the thing to do. Yeah, it's the diverter. Why haven't you streamed? I miss your streams. I miss the drinks, the mixed drinks. I miss the laughs. Where have you gone? No. So like that right orbit shot. Right, if you kind of look at it off the flipper here, there's going to be a post in front of it just to kind of protect the flipper, and then there's not really much of a line through there. It's a wide shot, so you're going to have some speed on your inlane to get that to actually hit over there, but I've tried to design this with fast inlanes so that it comes flying in, at least when it comes in from the outside there. Soon? Don't hashtag soon me. That is like the worst thing on my mind right now. Let's just hashtag soon everything. JJP, frickin' 2 weeks, 3 weeks straight of like teaser pictures. You had the coil picture, you had, you know, Jen getting in the truck to drive new machines so people can see them, and then it's a month straight of radio silence. Like, not a peep to be heard other than, we'll have something soon. Soon. So this mech is actually Hagrid's hut. So his hut will sit over top of this, and then there'll be kind of like the other little back portion to his hut, sitting in the back corner here. Diagon Alley is kind of, in a way, this shot here. So there's a diverter where these two shots change into another two shots type of thing. So I'm kind of thinking that'll be Diagon Alley. I initially had a shot that went like under the back of a ramp as Diagon Alley. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to end up. I wanted to do something cool with it. But like over here on the left side is the Ministry shot. Could be Diagon Alley. Could have multiple shots to kind of align with that. Like the left side's going to generally be like London, Diagon Alley, all of your kind of outside of the realm of Hogwarts. And then in the back you've got like the Quidditch pitch, you've got Hogwarts over here, Hagrid's. So like there's kind of the London aspect of it too. I don't have a dedicated shot for Ron's horny juice, or the love potion, if that's what you're referring to. But I am sure it will be coated in there somehow. Yep. Yeah. I mean, Rod, the last time you hopped in here, there's a whole lot different. I mean, there's a whole lot of, like, mechs and shit in here. I mean, what my goal is to try to get it physically so everything fits underneath, and making sure that I can fit everything underneath within the realm of what my shots look like. So that way when I go do a whitewood, everything just kind of fits and there's no surprises. So, yeah. And if you're wondering, that globe in the middle there is actually going to be the prophecy orb. So I actually have a globe here, and I put some Hallusion fabric in there, and then I have a little pico projector that'll project in the back of it, and so the prophecy orb will be, it's going to be a whole lot of like custom graphic art stuff that I don't know how to do, but I'm thinking that'll be like your countdown, or like Voldemort when he's talking to you, or when Voldemort like gets in the mind of Harry and he's like seeing his thoughts, like maybe that's kind of where that's displaying. Yeah, I know I can do it. It's just, it's a long haul. I want it to be physically playable, and then I begin down the long track of code. But ideally, my goal, and it's the first time I'm saying it, I don't know if I'll make it, but I would like to take this to MGC next year and at least have a playable whitewood with basic code. We'll see. A lot of stuff on the plate this year, so that's the ultimate goal. Alright, I am going to sign off. Thanks for hanging, thanks for chatting. Until next time, classy. See ya.